We have healthy children because there are people who've made sure that there are things in place for that. And right now we're seeing termites unleashed on everything. And this is a termite appointment.
Van Jones does not like the idea of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. heading up the Department of Health and Human Services, and he said so last night, primetime CNN. But the way he described Robert F. Kennedy Jr. raises certainly a few eyebrows. He used language that, well, I'll let you decide.
I don't know what you want me to say. I am just at a loss because we're watching something happen in slow motion that is terrifying. You know, the reason we have a great country is because there are pillars in place. There are columns and structures, just like in your house, columns and pillars that you don't see, but they keep things in a good place. They keep things in a good direction. We have healthy children because there are people who've made sure that there are things in place for that. And right now we're seeing termites unleashed on everything. And this is a termite appointment. We know for sure that Bobby Kennedy is a vaccine denier. He's a vaccine denier. He denies being a denier, but he is a denier. And he is going to do great harm. And when you drive down trusted institutions, democracy only works in a high trust environment. When you make everything political, when you make everything negative, when you cast doubts and aspersions, eventually people have to rely on strong men. And so we're in a process right now that's just heartbreaking. And, it turns out that Donald Trump wasn't telling the truth when he said he wasn't for Project 2025. And that guy on your show wasn't telling the truth when he said that Bobby wouldn't get HHS.
Wow, that's let me try to get through a lot of it. First of all, by the way, I had no idea that Scott Pressler had gotten a primetime show on CNN. Good for him. Really impressive that his star is ascending. Van Jones calling RFK Jr. a vaccine denier. But it should be pointed out that Van Jones is a 9/11 truther, which he now denies. So he's a 9/11 truther denier. The difference is Van Jones actually signed his name to a petition that aligned himself with 9/11 truthers. RFK has never. I've been searching in vain for this. What I have found from RFK, at least in terms of what his agenda is for HHS, having to do with all vaccines, not just childhood vaccines, but all vaccines, is that he believes that vaccines should go through the same rigorous testing protocols that all pharmaceutical drugs have to go to, that there shouldn't be mandates on people and parents for their children. And if you are harmed by a vaccine, and let me be clear, you can be harmed by vaccines. I know this because, number one, I have seen people who have been harmed by vaccines. And number two, if you ever get your kids their vaccine at the doctor's office, you know they give you like a packet of information, single-spaced, very small print, double-sided, about all the precautions associated with those vaccines. Why would they give you all of that information if there wasn't potential for harm? And of course, you're supposed to read that and digest that all before giving consent for the vaccine, but they hand it to you as the needle's going into your kid's thigh. I have 4 kids. I've been through it. I know of what I talk. Of course, people have been harmed by vaccines. Here's the thing. Robert Kennedy Jr. would like someone harmed by those vaccines to be able to sue those pharmaceutical companies if they're harmed. You know, just like anybody can sue over any sort of product that harms them. That's not being a vaccine denier. That's being pro-liberty and pro-freedom. That said, did he just refer to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a termite? Well, what's wrong? Cockroach is too extraordinary for you to say? What about vermin? Now, this is the kind of language that you use to dehumanize somebody, other them, and make them so untouchable that, you know, the next thing you know, a bullet is whizzing past their head. Termites? That said, if I allow for the analogy, and you're trying to tell me that the reason Robert Kennedy and other people have been put into positions of power in the Trump cabinet is so that they can go in and gut out these agencies of everything that is not needed, everything that is excessive, everything that is burdensome, everything that is actually counteracting American liberty and freedom for individuals, then fine, call me a termite, but let's just get the job done. Meanwhile, Jake Tapper, who has his own show over on CNN. He actually outdid Van Jones in the vitriol.
Well, America, I hope you like measles. Thanks to all of you.
That's how he introduced to his audience the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. I hope you all like measles. Later in the program, he had CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta on to talk about the very real existential threat to public health. You know, we never had a conversation with Sanjay Gupta about the very real existential threat to public health in reacting to public health officials getting caught in lie after lie after lie and cover up after cover up after cover up during the COVID-19 pandemic. That never raised concerns about the threat to public health. But now the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., apparently this is the existential threat. I want you, as you're watching this, to please bear in mind and constantly repeat to yourself that Jake Tapper is the real journalist in Washington, D.C. He's not like these other people who take sides on an issue and lobby or advocate for one issue or another. He's not a partisan. Jake Tapper is just a pristine, honest, real pure journalist who just follows the facts and the truth. Remember that as you watch this.
To steer clear of politics, but this really isn't about politics, because this is somebody who has been, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been pushing quackery, who has been pushing lies, who has been pushing conspiracy theories. You've been talking to experts in the health community, the medical community, preparing for him, RFK Jr., to be given some sort of role in health. What have they said to you?
Well, you know, it's not often that the entire medical and public health community is going to be in lockstep on something, but they're pretty close on this in terms of their significant concerns, horror even. Somebody said to me today, I can't think of any single individual who'd be more damaging to public health than RFK. Keep in mind, I think if the reporting's correct and the job is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, that comprises the CDC. We just got through this pandemic, comprises the FDA, comprises the NIH. He's talked about wanting to basically strip funding for infectious diseases overall. Again, just coming out of this pandemic with concerns about other viruses and things out there. The challenge, I think, is that at the same time, there is this whole idea that we're not a very healthy country. We spend $4.5 trillion on healthcare, and we have some of the worst outcomes in the developed world. And our food supply and other things are partly to blame, things that he's talked about. So there's these kernels of agreement with regard to the medical establishment and the public health establishment in particular. But then there's these other things like Caitlin was just talking about that they're not alternative views, they are false views. People often say, well, these are alternative views. They're not. People say, well, look, I think maybe vaccines could be linked to autism. Fair enough. That was an issue that came up, and it was studied in these large studies, global studies involving hundreds of thousands of kids who were followed for over a decade to see if there was in fact a link. Some of the studies actually showed that you were more likely to have autism if you were not vaccinated. But the point being that issues are raised, issues are studied, and yet they still keep coming up. And I think that's one of the big concerns. That's a metaphor, I think, for other things that people are concerned about with him.
It's a metaphor for things that people are concerned about, says Sanjay Gupta to Jake Tapper's questions about Kennedy's quackery. What was this one thing he said, though? Sanjay Gupta, who was on your television set all through the pandemic telling you to put your double masks on and do your 6 feet of social distancing. Even if you're outside, you should wear those masks, Sanjay was telling us, and to make sure that you get boosted every couple of months so that you can protect yourself from the virus and everyone around you. Because if you get the shot, you can't catch the virus. That's what Sanjay Gupta told us. What did he say here?
Who'd be more damaging to public health than RFK.
He can't think of another single person who'd be more damaging to public health than RFK. Actually, Sanjay, I can think of one other person. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2008, Barack Obama was applauded and celebrated by the likes of Politico, as you can see here, as he was considering nominating stars for his cabinet. Stars! Obama's going to fill his cabinet with stars. Lead paragraph. President-elect Barack Obama is strongly considering Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to head the Environmental Protection Agency, Democrat officials told Politico. You see, back then, RFK was a star. Now he's a quack, a conspiracy theorist, and an anti-Semite. Jake Tapper summed it all up for us, though, yesterday after this really stellar performance by the Jakester.
Loyal, not just loyal, people who display fealty, MAGA warriors. That seems to be the constant theme. They are MAGA warriors. They are in your face.
Correct.
These are not uniting people. These are not uniting picks. These are in your face to the medical community, to the intelligence community, to the military community.
That's what he wants. Yep.
That's what he wants.
Yes.
Loyal, not just loyal.
Yeah. He wants loyal cabinet members who will express fealty to him, that he can count on, that he can rely on to actually carry out his agenda. How dare he? What is he thinking? You know, it's funny. It's almost like he's been president before and he's had a bad experience with cabinet members who weren't loyal. You know, like at the Justice Department, when it turned out the FBI had a secret investigation of the president over the fake, bogus Russian collusion hoax that was completely created and invented and paid for by his political enemies, Hillary Clinton and the DNC. And the attorney general at the time actually was weak and did not do anything to root that out. It's almost like the CIA director at the time undermined his reelection efforts by authorizing a letter to go out with 51 intelligence officials saying that the Hunter Biden laptop story was a Russian operation and that Donald Trump was guilty of that. It's almost like people in the National Security Council leaked the information about a private phone call he had with another head of state that undermined his presidency and instigated an impeachment process against him. It's almost like, well, I could go on and on. So now Donald Trump wants people who are loyal in his cabinet, and Jake Tapper finds that exceptional, if not objectionable. Jake Tapper's sitting there saying, my God, where am I going to get my illegal anonymous leaks from? I'm going to actually have to do my job instead of just sit back and let people who want to undermine Trump come to me with the news of the day. I won't win a Pulitzer this way. How dare he? Well, with all of the screaming and all of the crying and all of the renting of their clothing and all of the shadow governments and all of the other vitriol that you're seeing from the left on cable news right now, you'd think that it'll be impossible for any of these cabinet appointees to get through confirmation. You would think that. But Mark Halperin, who's made a name for himself for having pretty well-sourced individuals on both sides of the aisle and has been pretty accurate with a lot of his information over the last several months, if not years, he's got a different story for you over the coming confirmation showdown.
It's hard for me to think about anything else about the incoming Trump administration. And as a consumer of all the political media, that's going to, I know it's already happening. It's going to take up a lot of the bandwidth of the press's coverage and of our conversations here. And again, I have no idea how it's going to end. Although I'll circle back to my beginning. I'm doing the weave here, by the way. Although I'm pretty good, as I say, at covering Trump as an outsider playing by different rules, some good, some bad, and Trump violating rules that we really should all be thinking about. I find this really complicated to understand. The fact that after yesterday's reaction to Gates, he went forward with RFK. No normal president-elect would do that. Someone, the chief of staff designate, or someone would say to the president-elect, you've already got a lot of planes stacked up over LaGuardia. Don't bring another plane in that needs to land. It's too much. But he did. And in a normal transition, the nomination of Bobby Kennedy to head HHS, enormously controversial on multiple levels, would be like the biggest thing. And it would raise questions about the judgment of the operation. That's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with at least 5 just almost unfathomable choices for the normal rules. No one should accuse me of saying he's not entitled to his people in general. No one should accuse me of saying I'm for the deep state and I'm for no shakeup of the status quo, because tens of millions of Americans share Donald Trump's belief about these departments and what needs to be done. But these are 5 people whose qualifications for these significant jobs, whether it's ideological or managerial or biographical, are deeply in question by any rational standard. And it now falls to one half of one third, a co-equal branch, to John Thune and his 52 colleagues to decide what they want to do about this. There's the prerogatives of the Senate to not be rolled by the executive branch. There's individual senators' views about the fitness of these 5 and others to serve in these jobs. But there's also the reality that it's an incoming Republican president who won the popular vote. You hear Democrats already saying, and some people in the media, Trump is forfeiting his mandate. He's forfeiting his political capital. He's dooming this term in the first 100 days and any legislative progress by asking the senators to devote time to deciding up or down. I continue to weigh in, despite the tone of some of this. I continue to weigh or put my finger on the side of, I think it's more likely all 5 will be confirmed than most people do.
Boy, it took him a long time to get there. And he put all the caveats in, and he explained how they're all doomed and they're all challenging, especially the 5. I guess he's talking about Noam, RFK, Gates, Hegseth. Lordy, I've lost track. Who's going to be the 5th one? I can't think off the top of my head who he thinks the 5th one is that's so objectionable. But you heard it. You heard it right there. If he had to guess today, as all the conventional wisdom watching, oh, it's doomed. This is outrageous. He's setting himself back. He's screwing up his first 100 days. He's taxing the Senate. They're not going to be able to get to all this. Halpern's reporting right now as he observes it, hearing what Thune had to say on Bret Baier last night on Fox News Channel, taking a look at all of it in total, flooding the zone the way that Trump is flooding the zone. He's pushing them all through. If you ask me today, he'll get all 5. That's how Mark Halpern sees it. Either way, this confirmation process is going to be, if this is how their reaction is on the first day that these people are named, just imagine what it's going to be like over the course of the next 8 weeks as this process continues to make its way through. You buckle up and you sit right down next to us here because we're on this roller coaster together and it's going to be a blast. Now we can get to work, finally get done with some of the major issues the country is facing. And one of the most significant, of course, is our national debt. But the fact is, the nation is broke. You know it. We all know it. And the debt is a house of cards. It can't quickly be dismantled. The strategy still remains the same for us in our personal lives. You got to diversify your savings. Many things are out of our control. You could argue even out of the president's control. It's important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you do that. They can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news about all of this is it doesn't cost you 1 penny out of pocket. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold. And we got a special offer right now through Black Friday. You'll receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased at Birch Gold. Diversify your savings with Birch Gold. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today.